Today I want to talk about something that's been on my mind for a while, and that would be monetization in video games. And specifically in the AAA video gaming industry, these monetization tactics are everywhere. And it's also in indie, I will say. I've seen it in indie games as well, but you can't really blame them. The AAA gaming industry, I mean, there was only AAA to begin with, right? The big companies that could afford to make these games, and they kind of set these trends. And so indie games and indie developers are just following in those footsteps. So you can't really blame them. But this monetization, it's so prevalent. It's just so commonplace now. It's really getting annoying. Like, as a consumer, as the buyer and enjoyer of these video games, well, let's be honest, my enjoyment level is dropping with every year because there's so much monetization in these games. Excluding free-to-play options, because obviously a free-to-play model, you have to make money somehow, so you have to, sell cosmetics or something to make your money and stay in business. So excluding free-to-play options, I want to pay a box price for a game, and that's it. That's it. I want to get a full and complete game. No DLC, no expansions, no cosmetics, no microtransactions, no battle passes, nothing. Just the game. That's what I want. And I want that from AAA as well, not just indie. It shouldn't have to be just indie where we can go to reliably get a game that's going to be just the box price. So anyway, we have this big, massive problem of monetization, right? Well, how did it start? How did we get here? Well, I'll start with the least offensive, in my opinion, which would be expansions. So if you want to add on full and complete kind of packages or extra stories onto a game, that's not as big of a deal to me. If anything, that could be really nice. Or really, it should just be like a sequel at that point. It should be its own standalone thing, but for certain situations, it makes sense, right? So the first notable expansion would be Tribunal for the Elder Scrolls Morrowind in 2002. And I put notable there. That's my note, right? My little caveat. Because there are ones before that, slightly before that, but this is the first one that I feel like a lot of gamers in general would maybe know or remember. And with this expansion being put out by Bethesda, who already had a track record of making really good games, they have a reputation already. People could reliably expect, oh, this expansion, this could be really exciting. It's an expansion on this game that we already love. We're getting more content. This is great, So people bought into it. And specifically with Morrowind, I will defend them here with their creation of an expansion because at this time, there was both CD-ROM and DVD-ROM being used for games. And Morrowind released on PC as well as Xbox. So the PC version was on a CD-ROM, and CD-ROM could only hold 700 megabytes. So the game was already maxing out the CD-ROM's capacity. And so in order for them to release Tribunal, they really had to do it as an expansion on a separate disc. So that's my defense for Morrowind and Bethesda. And then after seeing the success of Tribunal and also having more content planned for Morrowind, Bethesda released the Blood Moon expansion for Morrowind in 2003. So we have back-to-back examples from one game that is a very well-known company and game in the gaming industry, AAA, right? For other AAA developers to kind of go off of. So then 2004 rolls around, we've got Blizzard releasing World of Warcraft. And 3 years later, in 2007, they released the first paid expansion for World of Warcraft called the Burning Crusade. They'd already had that example from Morrowind. They could kind of build their model for their MMO off of that example that was set by Morrowind. That's just for expansions, and again, that's not the most offensive one in my opinion, and in a lot of cases it even makes sense and is a good thing. Like, for example, with MMOs, you kind of have to develop for a few years, release content so your gamers can play something, and then develop more so that you can have something for them to play again in a few years. It makes sense in that regard, but something that is a lot more offensive, in my opinion, as a gamer, right, as a consumer, is microtransactions. So in my research, the first game to implement microtransactions where you could buy cosmetics and things like that with virtual currency that you paid for with real money is Habbo Hotel. This game was released in 2001, and it allowed you to pay real money to buy credits, the in-game currency, to then buy cosmetics, furniture, things like that for your game. And this was successful enough that another big game, Second Life, implemented microtransactions as well in their game in 2003. Second Life had a robust economy for cosmetics and microtransactions. And so we already have 2 points here on a graph. We've got a trend kind of going here. And then 3 years later, the infamous horse armor DLC for Oblivion. So we've got multiple examples here showing that microtransactions work in games. And then with Oblivion, it's a box price game that you paid a price for already to play the game. And then you're paying another amount to get just an armor for your horse. So it proved that gamers will buy extra stuff on top of the box price for the game. So 3 years later, World of Warcraft implements microtransactions with $10 pets that you can buy. And so just think about this here. We've got a big name like Blizzard with a really established reputation, a history of making good games, right? They are implementing the box price for the game, a subscription. You pay a subscription to play this MMO. And also, they're implementing microtransactions so you can buy pets in their store. So this is a huge name that is endorsing this practice of using microtransactions in games. And so this sets the stage and sets the tone for every other AAA gaming developer to implement microtransactions in their games. Because they have a proven giant doing it and getting away with it, and gamers continuing to endorse and play their game. All right, so microtransactions. That still is not the worst offender to me. And it's going to be different person to person. You may hate that games offer cosmetics for sale. I think it makes sense, especially for those free-to-play games. Like, if, for example, League of Legends, if they didn't have skins for sale, the game would die, the developer would go away, it wouldn't work, right? That's what made League of Legends so successful. They made really good gameplay and cool characters, which made people kind of invest in those characters, and then they wanted to buy skins to make their characters look cool and different from other players. So yes, setting aside the cosmetics now, the worst offender to me is battle passes. Oh my goodness. And again, it's going to be different person to person, but for me, it's battle passes. I cannot stand battle passes. If you have to pay money to unlock something where you still have to grind to fill your progress bar to unlock all of the things in the battle pass to get what you want, that to me is the worst game design. It is the most consumer unfriendly. You are forcing the player to spend extra of their hard-earned money and still have to grind in your game to get the thing you want. That's why cosmetics to me are not as bad, and those kind of microtransactions are not as bad, because you can directly buy the skin or the thing you want. But with a battle pass, you pay for the battle pass to unlock it, to then have to grind through it to unlock everything that you want. It's bonkers to me. Seriously, the most consumer unfriendly, the most gamer unfriendly practice is battle passes, in my opinion. And so what happened with battle passes? Well, Dota 2. Dota 2 introduced them, and Dota was already a huge established name with the first one, Dota 2, continuing that. With their implementation of battle passes, it was adopted immediately. Dota was so successful with it, it just spread like wildfire. And again, with mentioning League of Legends earlier, League of Legends has their own battle pass. A lot of shooters have battle passes. So many games now have battle passes, it's ridiculous. So that covers the history and kind of how we got here. But to kind of address the name of this video, the rot of the gaming industry, the focus is no longer on making a good game. When you have full-time positions for monetization experts, for skin designers, or for gameplay experts with a focus on monetization, it feels corrosive. Your whole spin is on, okay, how do we get away from making the best game possible so that we can focus more on getting the most money possible? I wouldn't even complain so much if the games were absolutely incredible still. If every game that was coming out with monetization was a 9 or a 10, I don't think anybody would complain. But that's the problem. They're not. They're not all 9s or 10s. If anything, they're 6s or 7s, maybe, sometimes an 8. Some gamers have and will continue to absolutely buy into all this monetization, either because they have the disposable income or they just don't care. They have a particular type of game that they play, and they'll just keep playing that as long as there's more made of that game. But to those and to others who are sick of this monetization, I would implore you that we change this industry together And we have that power. We have the buying power. These game developers can't make games this way if we stop playing them, if we stop buying these cosmetics, if we stop buying the battle passes, if we stop buying the box price. We absolutely have the control and the power to change this gaming industry ourselves. It really does feel like rot, too. When I think back to my childhood and the first games that I ever played or watched my siblings play growing up on the regular Nintendo, the original Nintendo, watching my brother and sister play the original Mario Bros. Games. The pure, just unfiltered gameplay and fun. The simplicity of it. You play a game, you get through the levels, you avoid obstacles, you defeat enemies, and you win the level and eventually the game. At no point does the game, and obviously through the game, the developer, ask you for more money. Just a pure, clean gaming experience. Now, games were also not as good back then. I mentioned the Mario Bros. Games, and those are kind of like the icon of platformers for that time period, but there were a lot of garbage games, of course. The gaming industry was still developing. Developers were still learning what gamers wanted. But the focus was on trying to make the best game, the best type of game, the best version of that genre of game. Everybody was competing with their gameplay, with their graphics, with their story and dialogue and characters. Some AAA game developers are still doing that, for sure. They are. But in general now, what I see is indie game developers coming out with the banger, just absolutely mind-blowing games that don't ask you for extra money. It's indie games that are making those insane knockout successes these days. In general, I do see some still, of course, from AAA game developers, but with game development becoming much more accessible to the average person, we're seeing a lot more indie games coming out that are just insanely successful. Lethal Company, Balatro, Schedule 1, games like this by passionate game developers, very small teams, usually just one person, or even the small to almost mid-sized developers like the developers of Expedition 33. And what does Expedition 33 not have? A battle pass or microtransactions. There is no store when I log into that game. It is just the game, and it is gaming at its finest. The storytelling is incredible. The characters are awesome. The gameplay is fantastic. Graphics are great. It is a fantastic gaming experience through and through. That's what us gamers need. That's what we've always wanted. And that's what these AAA gaming developers need to get back to. That's my message. It's a rot to the gaming industry, all of this over monetization. I think these devs need to stop trying to make it about, okay, let's impress the stockholders with year-on-year percentage increases, because if that is your only goal, you're going to lose a lot of your fan base over time. We're going to get sick of the monetization. We already are. We're looking to indie devs who make these incredible games nowadays, and there's more and more of them. It's just going to keep growing. You're going to have more and more good competition. So if you want to stay competitive, if you want to keep us gamers interested, focus on making good games without the extra monetization. That's my message. I don't know what you guys think. I'm very curious to know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.